knew what he was talking about.
It's underway.
Okay, so it's
Call the meeting to order.
okay.
Jean's out there on the phone. There's no one out there.
Oh, Gene on the button.
You see if we get Jean back. Okay. Well, welcome everyone. First official meeting for 2023. Good to be finally started. So no apologies today. Everybody's here. Keen and excited for the first meeting. So the first order of business, making and attesting the appointment of the councillor to the community board.
Quite a pleasure.
So the motion.
Yes.
Second.
So, would you like me
Wait,
to
John.
do that now? Okay. I, John Morrissey, declare that I will faithfully and impartially and according to the best of my skill and judgment execute and perform in the best interests of the Coromandel-Colville community the powers, authorities and duties vested in or imposed upon me as a member of the Coromandel-Colville Community Board by virtue of the Local Government Act 2002, the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987 and any other act.
Thank you, John. Welcome to the board. Welcome. So the resolution is that we have before us is that the Coromandel-Colville Community Board receives the making and attesting the appointment of councillor to the Coromandel-Colville Community Board report dated the 19th of December 2022. So have a mover and a seconder.
I'll move.
I'll second.
All those in favour of us receiving that report?
No.
Aye.
Right.
Thank you very much, guys. I was a bit
Very.
worried there for a second. I didn't know if I was going to get a mover in a second. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Jean.
All right, John, let's get you to put your
Oh,
John Hancock on the bottom of there. Making it all official.
I've always been tempted to write John Hancock on.
and you over there?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Where is it? So move into public forum. Need to check the door outside to make sure there's nobody here.
Yeah.
Okay, then, in the absence of anyone wanting to take part in public forum, no need to receive them. The next thing on the agenda is the deputation.
Now,
Are they here?
we have got Sydney Wells from Biosecurity coming to speak. He was going to come and speak after public forum, so the girls are probably just trying to get a hold of him now to come online. So maybe if we just move,
Knock off some of the admin stuff.
yeah, and then we can come back when he arrives online.
Yep, so everyone's happy to move that back in the agenda?
Yep.
Cool. Okay, items not on the agenda. Is there anything that anybody has brought to them?
No.
At all? Good. Any conflicts of interest, having read the agenda and seeing what's before us today? Anyone see anything there that may raise a conflict of interest?
No.
No.
No. Excellent. Okay, so the next item, the minutes from the previous meeting. They were included in the documents. Everyone had a chance to read the minutes from our last meeting? Yep. Cool. Suggested resolution is that we confirm the minutes from the Coromandel-Colville Community Board meeting held on the 15th of November. Have a mover.
I'll move it. I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Everybody's happy with the minutes? Okay, all those in favour of the motion, say aye.
Right.
Aye.
Motion's carried. I'll sign those off. Do that later.
Okay, we're just having a little trouble getting hold of Mr. Wales. So we'll just carry on until he arrives. Oh. He's here now.
I will move out the way. Yes.
Okay, Sid, are you there?
Hello, yes.
Hi, welcome aboard.
Hi, sorry I'm a little bit late. I thought it was 9:30.
No, we are running early to go in a public forum today, so we can get straight on to you. And yeah, thanks for making yourself available earlier. And I'll hand the floor over to you.
Great. Let me just try and sort my stuff out. Let me start this from the beginning. Can you guys see this?
Yep.
Yep.
Wonderful. Where's my control bar? Here we go. Yeah, so kia ora tātou, ko koukou te maunga, ko rumahanga te awa, no te whanganui a tara ahau, ko Wales toko te whānau, ko Sid toko ingoa. So my name is Sid. I'm part of Biosecurity New Zealand, and I've been involved in the exotic calliope response for about a year now. So today I'd just like to give you a quick overview of what this invasive seaweed is, the risks it poses, and what we as a response have done and what we hope to achieve in the future. So what is exotic calliope and why are we concerned? So this seaweed, it comes from the Indo-Pacific region, but it's been found almost all over the world where the water is warm enough. So Africa to Australia, Pacific Islands, and even southern Japan. Most notably, it was found in Florida, the south coast there. Also Martinique and the Caribbean. And it had quite serious impacts in Florida on the local ecosystems, and crayfish in particular were displaced, which was quite impactful on their local community. It was first detected in New Zealand in July 2021 in Blind Bay, Aotea, which is, if I can get my thing, it's this one here on Great Barrier Island. Then subsequently it was detected in Trifina harbours and Whangaparaohara harbours on Aotea, and then on the western side of Ahuahu Great Mercury Island over here. So why is it bad? So the seaweed, it grows in these thick, dense mats, which basically smother the sea floor and make it really hard for any other seaweed or algae to grow there. So this can impact like seagrasses, which serve as natural habitats for fish species, for nurseries. And like I said, in Florida, it was really impactful, and it was called the killer algae there, which kind of puts some weight into how dangerous it can be or how impactful it can be. So over here, you can see that this patch of calliope has actually grown on one of these scallops. And although we don't know the exact impacts that it's going to have on New Zealand scallops, it can be pretty safely assumed that this is going to have some negative impacts on the way it moves around or the way it feeds, or yeah, so not so good. So how does it spread? So exotic calliope spreads through fragmentation, which means when it gets broken up, it can float around in the water system, in the water currents, and settle again on another patch of suitable substrate, and then it can just start growing from there. So those fragments can be broken up by storms or by coastal currents, and also by fishing gear and anchors. So if someone drops their anchor in a big patch, then pulls it up and doesn't clean it off, and then they can sail over to another location somewhere in New Zealand, drop their anchor, and then that patch of calliope can then take hold in another location. And so they can survive out of water for up to 7 to 10 days if they're in a moist location, so such as an anchor locker or a bunch of fishing net. So that's quite a that's the main risk of it spreading around New Zealand is through human activity. So these pictures here is from when I was on Aotearoa in January. After a little bit of a storm, that so it washes up in these what we call beach casts, and so these kind of bundle up and roll up the beach. And I've got some other photos later of what we saw after Cyclone Hale, which was much worse. So how can you identify exotic caulerpa? So the key thing to look out for is these oar-shaped leaves. They're like a bright green as well compared to a lot of other New Zealand seaweeds which are more of a darker green. And another key feature is they grow on these long runners or stolons, what they're called. And these kind of root systems grow under the ground, and then the leaves will grow up from that. So around Great Barrier Island, we've seen them at a depth of I think 38 meters deep is the deepest we've found it so far. Any deeper than that, then we'll be struggling to get enough light, which is useful in the sense that it's very unlikely that it's going to naturally spread from Aotearoa or Ahuahu to the mainland. It'll most likely be through human action, which would do that. Another thing is that the fragments are negatively buoyant, which means it sinks. So if the current does wash it away, again, it's less likely to settle on the mainland or make it all the way to the mainland. Yeah, so after stormy weather, as I said, it can wash up on the beach, especially in areas where there's extremely high density, such as Blind Bay, which is where Okupu Beach is in Aotearoa, which I've got some photos of later. So this is just a photo of the caulerpa bed at Blind Bay. So you can see it's really dense. It's got these stolons growing all over itself just because it's trying to outcompete itself. But it basically creates this monoculture of seaweed, which prevents any other native species in particular from growing there. Here's a little isolated patch. So it can be quite small to start off with, obviously. And so it's quite difficult to spot unless you're well rehearsed in what it looks like. And if you're a skilled diver might be able to notice this, but someone who's just diving for kaimoana might not pick it up. So that's why we're trying to teach as many people as we can how to identify it, so that if they do see a little patch like this, they'll be able to spot it. Here's just another dense patch with, you can see the stolons growing over each other from like more of a bird's eye view. And this photo here is quite interesting. So it shows a couple of fronds here, and then also if you see these little pinnules coming up out of the sand, that's where the stolons have grown underneath the sediment and are starting to grow up. So you can see how easily if you miss this little patch here, then in a few days' time, then all of this will be covered and it'll just spread and spread and spread. So that's why it highlights the importance of detecting it early, so you can take action hopefully. So this is Okupu Beach after Cyclone Hale. So as you can see, there's a whole lot of biomatter washed up on the beach here, and it doesn't smell very nice. It doesn't look very nice, and it increases the risk of it spreading because people will drive their boat trailers down and it'll get all tangled up inside like this one here. Luckily, our on-island ambassadors talk to these people and ensure that they wash all this off. But it just takes one person to miss a little bit on the bottom of their trailer and drive over to another beach somewhere else, and then it can settle and spread. So there are some native species of caulerpa in New Zealand, so articulata and brownie, and they can be identified quite easily compared to the exotic caulerpa. So they've got these sort of long central spines with little pinnules running off them, so kind of like a fern, whereas The exotic version is those long oar-shaped leaves off the stolon. So if you do think you've found some, the best thing to do would be to take a picture, ideally a high quality photo, close up. The closer the better, because it gives our taxonomists the best opportunity to identify it from that picture. Then give us the call on the 0800 number, and then they'll direct you what to do from there. So I'll just talk a little bit about the exotic calliope response as a whole now. So what is a response? So in the context of MPI, the biosecurity response is basically the action that's taken to effectively respond to a biosecurity threat. So when we detect an unwanted organism or a pest at the border or on the mainland or on an island or wherever in New Zealand, Biosecurity New Zealand will stand up a response based on whether the issue can be managed by BAU capabilities. So whether industry and other partners have measures in place to manage that, and also based on the risk that it poses to primary industries, taio, and other stakeholders. So when the exotic calliope response was first set up in July 2021, we came up with 3 main objectives. So reduce the risk of spread around New Zealand, minimize the impacts to the environment and communities, and enhance the mana of the mana whenua and all partners in the response. And those objectives have stayed throughout the 18 months that we've been working on it. So what have we done to date? Lots. So I'll quickly run through it. So we established a partnership-based response with local mana whenua in both Aotea and Ahuahu. So we've got 2 governance groups there. We've worked a lot with NIWA to survey around Great Bear Island and the wider Hauraki Gulf. We set up a technical advisory group to help determine whether this seaweed was treatable or able to be eliminated. We've put these controlled area notices and rahui on the 3 Aotea bays and also the western bay of Ahuahu, and those are in place to mitigate the risk of human spread. We've also started a public information campaign about the risk of calliope and information about the cans and rahuis in place. We did try local elimination using salt treatment, which was initially effective. So basically they pour 50 kgs of salt on every square meter that they can see the seaweed. And that worked, except the issue is that it killed everything else as well in the area. And also, after not too long, we saw that calliope reinvaded that site. And now there's just too much, basically, in these bays to be considered feasible for treatment, unfortunately. So, for example, in Blind Bay, we've got 44 hectares at least of the seaweed. So it'd be a lot of salt involved to get rid of that. So yeah, we set up a ambassador program in both Aotea and Whitianga. Where members of the local iwi go out and spread education and awareness about the seaweed. And we've got some on-water compliance monitoring. So we've chartered 2 boats on Aotea to go out and patrol around the areas where the calliope is, just making sure people are aware and making sure that if they have anchored, that they check and clean their anchor for any seaweed. So, as I said, local elimination isn't considered feasible just because there's so much of it. And so the response is now beginning to move to a long-term management program. So the idea of this would be to shift from more regulatory approach, so the can zones and restrictions, to more of an education approach. So a behavior change campaign to educate people on the risks of the seaweed and best marine biosecurity practices. So this program of work will have these 5 key work streams, so surveillance, compliance, research, and education awareness. And it's going to be known as the Exotic Caliper Management Program. So that's hopefully going to be start transitioning to this program in late March, early April. So we'll see. So just to touch on these controlled area notices. So a controlled area notice is a area under the Biosecurity Act which restricts activities. So currently there's 4 controlled area notices. Well, there's 4 areas which are under controlled area notice until the 30th of April. And we believe that it's unlikely to be extended after that, as it was mainly put in place to mitigate the risk of human-mediated spread until we had this behaviour change campaign put in place, which has now been set up, which I'll touch on briefly. So they're slightly different on the different zones. So on Ahuahu, on the western side of Great Mercury Island, this is shown here, there's no collection of kaimoana at all. And you are allowed to anchor, but you have to clean or check and clean your anchor and anchor chain for any seaweed before you leave. Whereas on Aotea, on these 3 harbours, on Trifina, Blind Bay and Whangaparapara, it's a bit more strict. So there's no anchoring at all, except for exceptional circumstances. So that would be emergencies or on-water access to your property only, or research, things like that. And you can fish, but only if it's with a rod and line from the shore or from the wharf within these zones. So in terms of further surveillance, we don't have any active surveillance planned, but we're kind of trying to tie into other current programs which are already in place. So including, the community, who hopefully, once this education has gone out to them, will be able to recognise exotic caliper and then let us know if they think they found it. There's also an annual surveillance program all over the country where NIWA goes out and dives, and they've included caliper on their list of species to look out for now as well, and also incorporating caliper into other council and dock surveillance programs such as the Waikato Marine Surveillance Program and the Waiheke Marine Project. So the behaviour change campaign started up in Labour weekend in October last year, and so this is trying to influence the behaviour of people and to educate them about the risks of the seaweed, and basically teaching them to how to recognise it and what to do when they do recognise it. So we did. I don't know if you recognise Matt Watson. He's quite a well-known fishing personality. We got him to do some messaging on that, as well as signage all over the harbours where the seaweed is. A lot of digital marketing campaigns. So you may have seen these pop up. Apparently, it's reached over 1 million people so far. So hopefully, the message is getting out there. And then we're setting up this caliper research program. So it's got 3 key work streams. Firstly, we're working with Ngāti Hei in Whitianga and Cawthon Institute, going out to Ahuahu and looking at the ecological impacts and the use of environmental DNA, which is where they take a sample of water and will hopefully be able to detect which species are in that area based on that water sample. So it's a future possibility for surveillance. If we take a sample in, I don't know, Wellington Harbour or something, and it comes up with some caliper DNA, we can assume that there is caliper somewhere within Wellington Harbour, for example. And that's going to be hopefully starting up at the end of March. We've also got NIWA looking at the ecological impacts of caliper on Aotea, specifically taonga species, so kina and scallops, and they're starting up at the end of February, working alongside local iwi as well for that. And we're also looking at getting AET to start up some lab trials of kinna. So basically getting kinna, putting it in a tank with the seaweed and native seaweeds as well, seeing if they'll eat it. And that could possibly be used as a biocontrol method further down the line around the fringes of these main patches and any new sites that are detected. So yeah, so that basically sums up my presentation. So I'll give you guys some time for questions if you like.
Cool, thanks, Sid.
Yeah, no worries. Let me just unshare my screen and I can come back. I can work out how. Stop sharing. There we go.
So as partners in this process, what's sort of the best thing that we could do to help?
I think pushing the information out to people. So making sure that the messaging around checking and cleaning your anchor for any seaweed really, because this behavior change campaign that we're setting in place about the key tagline is seaweed, chuck it straight back. That can be used for future biosecurity incursions as well, not just this caliper. So it's just basically working for long-term behavior change to get people to check and clean their anchor for any biomaterial really, so that if there is another seaweed that comes along in the future, then that message is already in place and ingrained. Kind of like the check, clean, dry campaign for Didymo. That's been really well hammered home for a lot of boaties around lakes and waters and rivers. And so we want a similar kind of impact with this seaweed chuck it back campaign. So yeah, I guess just reaching out to the community and making sure people are aware of this. I don't know if you'd like to receive some of our information packs that we can send you guys to distribute, or yeah, or if you have any other surveillance programs that you guys know about. So I know we're working with Waikato Regional Council with they've got some surveillance programs in place already, which we've tied into, and we've got them to go out to Ahuahu for some additional dives when they've had time. So if there's anything like that that you guys have up and running, then that'd be fantastic too. Just anything we can tie into really.
Cool, thanks, Sid. Other questions?
No, fine, thanks.
Yeah, excuse me, through the chair. How have the Great Barrier people reacted to not being able to have any mooring space in their number 3 harbours, you know?
Yeah, so we have had some backlash increasingly as the time has gone on. People are starting to get a bit fed up, which is why we're trying to move away from those regulatory measures. In general, people are pretty good, and they understand the reason why they're in place. And there's 1 or 2 people who aren't so happy. We were initially looking at extending that can zone to the entire western side of the island, but that was met with a huge backlash from the community, and so that idea was basically scrapped because of that. And so there are still moorings available in the 3 harbours. It's just the anchoring which isn't, and so and if you do have residents there, then you are able to get a permit to anchor. Otherwise, if you're a visitor, at the moment you have to find another safe anchorage place, which is most likely Port Fitzroy, which can be a little bit inconvenient, but yeah, it's just a balance of inconvenience versus managing the risk at this stage. But yeah, like I said, I think it's unlikely that these can zones will be extended past the 30th of April, just because we've got these behaviour measures in place, or an education campaign in place.
So is this spreading, and is it going to literally take over all the area that it can? Is that how you're going to deal with it?
So it's a bit hard to judge what it's going to do in New Zealand waters, just because we haven't seen it here before. based on what's happened in Blind Bay, I think the risk is that it could cover some large areas. We do expect there to be dieback every year as well. And often we see in these situations that there'll be an initial boom of like this invasive seaweed, and then it will over a few years balance out, which would be ideal. But now it's basically just trying to prevent it from spreading to the mainland would be the key thing, and also around the islands as well, where it already is. Through human mediated spread, there's not much we can do to stop it from spreading naturally. But as I said, it's very unlikely that that's going to spread from those islands to the mainland. There might be some spread around the coast naturally, as it just kind of creeps and grows. And we are working on setting up a contingency plan for if we do have new detections on the mainland or additional islands. We can go out and hopefully treat those patches if they're found early enough. And we're developing a whole set of criteria for treatment, and hopefully we'll have a contract in place with someone like NIWA, so that if we do detect a small enough patch, we can go out there and treat it quickly to stop it from spreading.
Thank you.
Difficult. Cool.
Yeah.
And you don't see any other control kind of on the horizon? You said the salt is...
Yeah, so based on that technical advisor group that we set up, they suggested that salt would be the most feasible option. There was talk about trialing UV light treatments as well, but again, there's just so much of it now that local elimination is basically unfeasible. This is too much of it. And for these new patches, if new patches are detected, then salt would remain the best way to treat those small patches.
So slow the spread is the key.
Yeah, exactly. Slow the spread.
Yep. And you're happy for us to share your presentation?
Absolutely, yeah, I can send you those slides for sure.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
We have actually captured that in the recording.
Yeah.
So,
Cool.
Right. Thanks, sir. Thanks for your time.
No worries.
Goodbye.
Thanks a lot. Cheers, guys. See you later.
Ciao.
Worry.
Yeah.
It's a big worry to the It's our biggest crayfish.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Okay, so we just need a resolution to accept that presentation into the meeting. Have a mover and a seconder.
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Thank you. All in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Move on to the next item. Next item being
Page 10.
our representatives. So Community Board Executive Committee representative for Zone 2. Everyone's aware of what's being asked.
Yep.
It's happy that we vote. Just before we kind of set it up, I just wonder, as a method of voting, since there's almost as many of them as there is of us, suggest maybe we use a voting method, one of the options for electing a chair. So that method being that we vote. If there is only 2 that get votes, then that's fine. The person with the most votes gets it. But for example, all 4 may get 1 vote each, in which case the person with the least votes drops off. We vote again for the remaining 3 until we get to the point where we've got 2.
Yep. Yep, that's great.
That makes sense.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll do the motion at the end, once we've decided who we're going to vote for.
you could actually, if you wanted to, you could just do a motion to receive it, then go around and do the vote, and then do the second, but you could do it all as one at the end, that's fine.
Let's do it as well. Okay, so in terms of the people who are listed there, I guess just a show of hands as we go around and vote. The first name on the list, Bill? Votes for Bill.
Page 11, you've got the four candidates' names and the areas that they come from.
Yep, gotcha.
Okay, Bill, Bill, Carolyn, Alan and James. If you go through them, we'll tally the votes and see how we go. So votes for Bill,
0.
votes for Carolyn, 1, 2, 3.
3. Yep.
Done then.
Votes for Alan, here's,
Yep.
2.
and James. So, no need for any further round of voting. The motion is that the Coromandel-Colville Community Board puts forward a vote for Carolyn. And that goes off to the Community Board's executive. I'll move that motion. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Jim? All those in favour?
No,
No.
We'll do it later.
Later. Cool, thank you. Next item, the lease.
I think so.
What?
One step ahead myself.
Yep.
Page 15.
2.2.
So 2.2 was just an update of what went to council in December on procedural matters. So your code of conduct, the elected members' expense and resource policy, and the meeting schedule, which I think you've already received. But it was just an update, let you know what's going on.
Just receiving the information.
Yep.
I read all that shit on Sunday morning.
Is that information?
Like it,
I
Jim?
think
Yeah.
it's
Word
that
for
information.
word.
Can you just give us a quick summary, please, Jim?
I woke myself up 3 times.
I wrote myself up.
Good on you.
No, it's well written.
Any discussion? Okay, so the resolution is that we receive the elected members' procedural matters and information report.
Yep.
Dated 16 of December 22, and the 3 attachments. Now, wish to speak to the motion? Discussion? No, so we can vote. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Passed. So that'll keep us all official right now. So excited about the fire brigade lease. Now we 55.
And we have Nicole joining us.
Nicole, welcome aboard.
I'll just move to the side.
Yeah, you're on mute, Nicole.
Good morning, everybody. Try that again. Take 2.
Okay, hi, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
We've got the material here. Nicole, anything you'd like to cover over it for us, please?
No, just in summary, FENZ are just looking for the 2 ground leases for Kennedy Bay and Port Charles, and it's all pretty standard, so nothing really to add to my report.
Okay, cool. Anybody have any questions? Come.
The rent at $100 per annum,
Mm-hmm.
is that standard or has that always been that amount? I just sort of thought that we would do it for nothing, seems they're our lifeline, really.
The rent is, as per our policy, there was a policy adopted by council for community leases and licenses to occupy, and that set the rate for emergency groups at $100. So community groups are at $350. All emergency operations are at $100 a year.
Okay,
So there is a policy we follow when we set the rental.
right, okay, that's good.
Cool. And Nicole, are you aware of the difference with Colville and Paparoha.
No, I'm not familiar with.
Well, there's,
Different, pardon?
well, clearly they're not included in this. So we have 5 games at Colville and Paparoha.
Yes,
No, we don't have Havaruha.
Well, there's a building there that sits on land that's got fire station stuff on it.
Yeah, but it's not.
It's not an operating.
Yeah.
Brigade, it's just a community building.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Colville already had their lease.
Cool, same situation as this.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. And so then Paparoha going to continue to be leased, you know, bubbles for the future?
That's a separate issue, that property, Nicole's manager, John Ruston, is currently working on.
Yeah, right. Cool. No more questions? Everybody's happy? Cool. The suggested resolution is that the Coromandel-Colville Community Board receives the new leases, FENZ Port Charles Kennedy Bay Fire Station's report dated 27 October 22, and that we recommend to the council that it enter the ground lease with FENZ for the Port Charles Fire Station, 1297 Port Charles Road. And with all that detail attached to it. And that we also recommend the council enter a ground lease with FENZ for the Kennedy Bay Fire Station, 1245 Kennedy Bay Road, and all of that associated detail. We have a mover and a seconder, please.
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
All those in favour?
Aye.
Motion is carried. Thank you,
Thank you.
Nicole.
that's all right. I'll stay online for the next item as well.
Rightio, in a similar vein.
Page 58.
The Coromandel Wharf fuel facility. Everyone happy with what they've read?
Yep.
Yep, understand it. Nicole, anything around that you'd like to add?
No, not anything in addition to my report, no.
No. Anybody have any questions for Nicole arising from the report?
No.
That being the case, I'd like to suggest the resolution that Coromandel-Colville Community Board receives the new lease, Coromandel Wharf Fuel Facility Report dated 27 October 22, and that we recommend to the council that the council enter a deed of lease with Burn Energy for the fuel station at the Wharf in accordance with the list of detail. A mover and a seconder for that resolution.
I'll move it.
Jean, all those in favour?
Aye.
Motion is carried.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Nicole.
you.
Thanks.
Okay, bye-bye.
I'll stay over here.
So we do for, we're not due on the agenda's morning tea, but we could put that off if everybody's happy for a bit. We're running quite early. And since we've got Ed online, welcome Ed.
You've got one.
I think you're muted, Ed.
I think I was muted. Thank you.
Yes.
Rightio, the item on the agenda 4.1, the request for licence to occupy Harataunga West 7B, Kennedy Bay Road, Coromandel. Everybody's read and understands
Yep.
that's about. Ed, anything to add?
Nothing to add. I believe the board is fully aware of the proposals for the area that's been presented by the Tauranga trustees. We would support the proposals in principle, but there is still a little bit of paperwork, shall we say, to get the everything sorted out. I do understand that Tauranga trustees are proceeding with the project on the assumption that this is going to be granted, but I would say that I would support it at this time and recommend, as I say in the report, recommend that we discuss with the trustees and come to an agreement on the license to occupy.
Yep, cool. Thank you. The questions of Ed before we debate the motion? No? Okay, so the suggested resolution is that the Coromandel-Colville Community Board receives the request for licence to occupy Harataunga West 7B, Kennedy Bay Road, Coromandel report dated 19 December 2022. That we agree in principle to supporting a licence to occupy to be agreed by council, subject to confirmation of the details. And we also request staff to continue working with the applicant on the details of the licence to occupy and report back to us once details have been confirmed. Happy with the resolution?
Yep.
Move
Yeah,
a second.
very good. Yeah, I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Motion to speak to the resolution.
I'd just like to thank you, Ed, for, it didn't fit into any particular envelope, this thing, but you were flexible enough to find a way through. So thanks for that, Ed.
Cool. Okay, so all those in favour of the resolution?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? Motion is carried.
Hello, Andrew.
Good morning.
Oh, he's got another report.
Item 4.2. So move to item 4.2, out of cycle budget requests, Coromandel bypass revised alignment, amended arrangement. Everyone read and happy with what they've read?
Yep.
Yep.
Ed, anything you'd like to add?
Not at this time. As the report says, we've requested a cost for the proposed amended alignment that came out of the previous community board request and the public consultation, which is forms attachment A to the report. Basically, this report is requesting permission to carry on with that and to seek funding for the additional design work that's required.
Yep. Thank you. Any questions of Ed before we move on?
No.
Okay, the suggested resolution is that the Coromandel-Colville Community Board receives the out-of-cycle budget request, Coromandel Bypass Revised Alignment Amended Arrangement Report dated 5 January 2023. Recommends the council approve the movement of the funding for the design of the Coromandel Bypass of $100,000 in the current long-term plan from the 23-24 financial year to the 22-23 financial year. Recommends the council request the chief executive proceed with the amended design to minimise disruption to the Coromandel Rugby Club, including consideration to feedback following public consultation. We have a mover and a seconder.
I'm happy to move that.
I'll second.
John and Jim.
Okay, any discussion?
No.
Everybody's happy? Yeah, so I'd just like to speak against the resolution. I do so simply looking at the $100,000 being, it's not a lot of money in the overall scheme of things, but it is another $100,000. And with council being asked in many different ways where to spend money, that we need to be very careful about how we spend money on behalf of the council. So for the project, we are spending this money because the rugby club have expressed a reluctance to move. That's fair enough. We do the realignment, we move the road closer to another neighbour who then expresses a reluctance to move. Is that money well spent? I'd like to suggest that it's not. Perhaps another option would be to put some more time into discussions with the rugby club before we go to council and spend another $100,000 with consultants and design that may not actually take us very much further forward. That's it for me. Anyone else like to speak to the motion? No, everyone's happy, cool. So you'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Aye.
Aye.
All those against? Nay. And the motion's carried. Thank you.
Chair, did you want to finish that recorded?
No, I'm happy with that. Cool, thank you, Ed.
Thank you, board.
Thanks, Ed.
Thanks, Ed.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, unless anyone else thinks there's something we've missed in the agenda.
We should have,
Yes.
we should have asked you for a quick update on the road.
I keep ticking one ahead.
Oh, is Ed still online?
Yeah, maybe,
That would have been good.
maybe.
Ed, are you still online?
No,
No, he's gone. Sorry, come.
Rightio, yes. Jumping ahead, must be because the sun's out. Keen to get out into the sun. Item 4.3, CAPEX web program.
has Andrew Bowen joined as well?
Yes, yes.
Andrew, welcome aboard.
Thank you. For those who haven't met me before, I'm Andrew Bowen, Project Delivery Manager. Right, the work programme, is as read really, any questions? Hopefully I can answer them. I'll give you a quick update on Takuma Road intersection. It's a dreaded project at the moment. We've had significant issues with NZTA Waka Kotahi about the geotech design of what we're proposing to do at the intersection. They've demanded a peer review of the design that's been put together by a geotech consultant. The peer reviewer has done that now, and we have also been in close contact with Ngāti Whanonga with regard to the work that is proposed to be carried out there. Now, for those of you who don't know, and I didn't know, where the junction is, there used to be a village there, close to the Takuma Road, and a par over viewing it. We've met with Mike Baker and other members of Ngāti Whanonga, and at the moment the CIA, the Cultural Impact Assessment, is being updated. Our relationship with Ngāti Whanonga is, I can only say, very good at the moment. We're working close consultation. So the design drawings for the intersection, further to discussions with Ngāti Whanonga, further to discussions with NZTA, are currently being updated, and I am very confident that before the end of this month, the updated design will be issued to Waka Kotahi, and the updated CIA will be received from Ngāti Whanonga. Okay, so and until we get the design to NZTA and that they accept it, our discussions with the landowners around that area are on hold because we have to get NZTA aligned with us, and then we can approach the landowners. So we're treading a very careful line at the moment to try and keep on track with Waka Kotahi and with Ngāti Whanonga. I had a Teams meeting with them about a week and a half ago, and they're on track to update the CIA that we can also issue them to the landowners as well. So that's where we are at the moment.
Just at the intersection, Andrew, over all of this rain event that we've had and whatnot, there's been extensive amounts of video posting and photos on Facebook in terms of what's happening right there at the intersection. Do you think that information would be passed to Waka Kotahi and will it have an impact on what they're doing?
It may do, Margaret. Our design consultants are called Pinnacle Civil, based in they come from YE, but they're based in Thames in our offices, and they are fully aware of the videos and the photographs that have been sent, done the rounds, as it were. And I would imagine, Margaret, that once we get the design nearly there, some of that work we can incorporate. Waka Kotahi would love that council spends a lot of money on the intersection, more than is in our budget at the moment. To say it's a frustrating time for us is an understatement at the moment. We think they're being somewhat picky about what we do, and I don't believe personally that they take any responsibility for the section and for the payment of whatever we need to do there. There's no doubt about it that the intersection is a health and safety risk, and if Sugarloaf reaches the potential that I think we all hope it will, then the truck movements in that area will significantly increase, and the health and safety risks will come with it. The Sugarloaf design and the consent that's been put in, which is now on hold, has put in that there's a truck lay-by on Takuma Road. Where and when that can be constructed is beyond me at the moment, and Ed is aware of it as well. If you drive down Takuma Road towards Sugarloaf, on the right-hand side, which approaches the coastline, that is a very wet area, very wet area. And the left-hand side is culturally sensitive with regard to Ngati Whanunga. We're fully aware of this. There's a Wahitapu along the coastline there. We don't come anywhere near that, anywhere near it. But where this, in the design for Sugarloaf, where this lay-by will be, who knows at the moment? I have no idea. So there's a few complications around. But rest assured that we are trying to minimise the amount of budget we spend on that project. There is an element of preloading to be done in the area, which will be there for approximately 12 months. So there's a lot of time ahead of us for this project to become fully realised. So that's where we are at the moment. I make no apology for this. This is just the complications of working with Waka Kotahi, and I understand that what we're proposing to do at the moment has been on the cards for quite some time with regards to that.
Yeah.
So that's where they are at the moment. Yeah, that's it. Any questions at all? I probably floored most people.
Yeah, no, I say, that doesn't come as any surprise to me, Andrew. I think that's been pretty much the attitude since we started this thing, that they saw us as paying for the majority of it. And I'm not that impressed with that, to be honest with you. I've spoken to Aileen about it and Len. I mean, it's done future-proofing what may be the tonnage out of Sugarloaf at the end of the day, but they'd hope to get 43,000 tonnes out of there. But that's years out. And if Tokatea are not pulling their weight, if they're being obstructive, they can have, that intersection can stay like that as far as I'm concerned. It's their highway that gets ripped up every time those trucks go around there. They're not recognising the health and safety problems that highway has. Yeah, I'm not happy that they're trying to push council into carrying the majority of the cost. That peer review you had to have done, was that at our expense?
Absolutely.
And what was that, 50,000?
I'm not sure.
Not sure.
The exact amount, but it
Yeah.
could be circa that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
And it was demanded by them.
Yeah,
To have a peer review of our design.
Yeah.
And that peer reviewer has now finished his report, and that's gone in, will be going in this month.
Yeah.
With the updated design from HDGO, which are geotech. So we've got Pinnacle Civil, we've got HDGO.
Yeah.
We've got the peer reviewer. It all adds up.
Yeah.
It's all money.
oh, I know, it's,
Good ratepayer money.
yeah, I know.
It's going for something that I believe is a little unnecessary.
Yeah, I'm totally hearing you, and I've already having those discussions with Aileen. To me, those, the one thing you did say that was concerning was those pull-ins with the lay-bys for the trucks.
Yeah,
Those are probably more important, I feel, than the actual intersection itself. Those probably need to be progressed along the Sugarloaf.
I believe so. And that Sugarloaf is up in the air
Yeah.
at the moment.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're looking closely at that. What's our budget for that intersection? $2 million, Andrew? Is it council's putting $2 million in?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, that's council's contribution to that. Yeah, okay, we'll keep watching that pretty
So,
closely.
with regard to the budget we have this year, the 950, we'll spend some of that, but not everything. And also, with regard to the landowners in the area, they have a company called Land Compensation Claims working for them. And every penny that they spend on consultation with the Moore family, we have to pay.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's the annual plan's coming up shortly and all this stuff's being looked at. So what you've just given me today is good information. And yeah, we'll see where it goes.
I don't, John, this project, if it ends in 2024, we'll be doing well.
Yeah, no,
That's my view.
it's been a nightmare, that intersection, and I didn't anticipate it being like this, but that's because some of the parties are not too, well, one of the parties in particular is not too helpful. Okay, no, thanks, good, Andrew.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Andrew, Harataunga House, we talked about it the other day, mentioned that someone said the building's been demolished.
You know something?
Are you aware of?
That's not something that Andrew deals with.
John.
Yeah, those are our local matters, but it's all good. But that's a different matter anyway, the little Kohanga building, because that's not part of the parcel of land that's included in this.
Not,
No.
right, okay, cool.
Just on another issue, the Buffalo Cemetery, we've just employed the our project coordinator has left us. We've just employed an independent project manager to look after this. So somebody is looking after it, albeit they're just taking on the project now. So rest assured that that is moving ahead.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
The state of our cemetery is terrible.
Your cemetery.
Yeah.
Here.
And what the grass, I mean,
Yep, it's disgusting. Fair mowing is just non-existent.
My grandmother's headstone disappeared.
oh,
I got a new one.
what, oh, yeah, there's another discussion.
I would suggest that's taken up by Derek Thompson.
Yeah,
Any
this year.
issues regarding the cemetery.
Hmm,
I don't have any involvement in that.
no, I just
No, but,
threw that in there.
no,
There certainly are issues,
There's huge issues, which is something we should address.
not just with the cemetery.
No,
Okay, well, if we're finished with you, Andrew, I propose that the resolution that we accept, that we receive the Coromandel-Colville Community Board CAPEX program 22-23 and any other operational updates report Date 11 January.
Thank you, Andrew.
Move and seconder.
Yep.
Jim?
Second. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. Right, final. Now can I?
You may. Meeting you need. You may.
If there's nothing else, declare the meeting closed at this time.
Well done.
10:06. Thank you all very much. Namihi. And should we take a quick break?